What if the cartoons you watched as a kid were hiding something far stranger than you remember? Not heroes, not villains, but creatures that were never meant to exist. The 1990s pushed animation into a bizarre direction where animals mutated into warriors. Experiments created new life. Entire worlds evolved beyond logic. These shows looked fun on the surface, but beneath them was something unsettling, something unpredictable. Today, we uncover 15 mutant animal cartoons that turned childhood into something far more strange. Number 15. Biker Mice from Mars, 1993. It begins on a dying planet where survival means mutation or extinction. Mars is not the red desert we imagine. It is a battlefield where mice evolved into warriors. When their world falls to a corporate tyrant, they escape to Earth carrying scars that are both physical and genetic. These are not ordinary rodents. Each one is altered. Metal limbs replace flesh. Enhanced strength replaces natural limitation. Their personalities are shaped by war and loss. Throttle carries a cybernetic arm. Vinny hides pain behind reckless humor. Moto bears the weight of survival in silence. Their mutations are not accidents. They are consequences of a brutal history. What makes the show strange is not just the concept. It is how normal it treats the bizarre. Giant humanoid mice ride motorcycles through city streets while fighting alien invaders disguised as businessmen. The tone swings between comedy and destruction. It feels playful, yet carries an undercurrent of displacement. And just when you settle into that madness, the next entry pushes mutation into something far more extreme. Number 14. Street Sharks, 1994. Here, the transformation is not slow or evolutionary. It is sudden, violent, almost grotesque. 4 brothers are forced into a machine that rewrites their DNA in seconds. Human flesh melts into something else. Bones stretch. Teeth multiply. Skin hardens into something that no longer belongs to the human world. They emerge as sharks, not creatures of the ocean, but walking tanks of muscle and instinct. Their bodies are exaggerated beyond logic. Massive jaws, impossible strength, movements that defy physics. They do not just fight crime. They crash through buildings as if reality itself bends around them. The show never hides the horror behind the transformation. It simply masks it with energy and humor. Catchphrases replace fear. Action replaces reflection. But beneath that surface lies something unsettling. These characters did not choose what they became. The mutation here is forced, permanent, and irreversible. That is what makes it memorable. It turns identity into something fragile. And as strange as this feels, the next world expands the mutation even further by dragging ancient creatures into the same chaotic experiment. Number 13. Extreme Dinosaurs, 1997. Imagine a world where extinction was never final, where dinosaurs did not disappear but evolved into something louder, faster, more aggressive. That is the foundation of this series. It takes creatures that once ruled the earth and reshapes them into exaggerated modern warriors. These dinosaurs are not natural survivors. They are engineered extremes. Their bodies are built like athletes. Their personalities echo the loud confidence of the decade. Raptors speak like street fighters. A Tyrannosaurus becomes a heroic leader. A Stegosaurus turns into a living weapon. Every element feels amplified beyond reason. The mutation is not explained in quiet scientific terms. It is explosive. It is chaotic. It is treated as something that simply is. And that is what gives the show its bizarre identity. It does not ask you to question the logic. It demands that you accept the madness. What makes it even stranger is how it mirrors human culture. These prehistoric creatures adopt modern attitudes. They skateboard, they compete, they act as if they belong in this timeline. That collision between past and present creates something deeply unnatural. Number 12. Rovers, 1996. It starts with an accident that feels almost absurd. A mysterious chemical leaks and spreads across a quiet countryside, but what follows is not random chaos, it is transformation with purpose. Ordinary dogs begin to change, their bodies stretch upright, their minds sharpen. Instinct blends with intelligence until something entirely new emerges. These are not pets anymore. They are agents, protectors, symbols of national power. Each one represents a different country and carries traits shaped by both breed and culture. A British sheepdog becomes disciplined and strategic. A Russian wolf reflects brute strength and resilience. Their identities are no longer simple. They are layered with instinct and responsibility. The mutation here is controlled. It creates heroes instead of monsters. Yet there is something unsettling beneath that control. These animals did not ask to evolve. They were pulled into a system that assigns them purpose. Loyalty becomes expectation. Freedom becomes secondary. The show wraps this idea in humor and action, but the concept remains strange. Intelligence is forced upon creatures that once lived simple lives. They are elevated, but also trapped in roles they never chose. It presents mutation as something organized and almost political. And then the tone shifts again into something even stranger, where mutation is not accidental at all, but part of an interdimensional war. Number 11. Mighty Ducks, the Animated Series. 1996. At first glance, it seems like a simple extension of a sports franchise. But beneath that surface lies one of the strangest concepts of the decade. These ducks are not athletes from Earth. They are refugees from another dimension, warriors shaped by war and survival. Their bodies are already far from natural. They walk upright, they speak, they fight with advanced technology. But the true mutation is deeper than appearance. It is cultural. These characters carry the memory of a destroyed world. Their strength is not just physical, it is emotional. Each duck represents a different response to trauma. One leads with discipline, another hides pain behind humor, another channels anger into battle. Their transformation is not just biological, it is psychological. The enemies they face push the concept even further. Reptilian invaders dominate their home dimension. The conflict becomes a strange ecosystem of evolved species locked in endless war. It feels less like a cartoon and more like a distorted alternate biology. What makes it bizarre is the way it blends tone. Hockey imagery sits next to alien warfare. Light humor exists alongside destruction and exile. The show never fully explains how these elements coexist. It simply forces them together. That collision creates something unpredictable. It turns a familiar idea into something alien. And it proves that mutation in the 1990s was not always about experiments. Sometimes it was about entire worlds evolving into something unrecognizable. Number 10. Wild Wesses. C.O.W. Boys of Moo Mesa, 1992. The origin begins with a single cosmic event. A comet passes over the Earth and releases a strange radiation. It does not destroy, it changes. Cattle caught in its path do not die. They evolve. Their bodies reshape into humanoid forms. Their minds expand. Civilization begins where none should exist. What follows is a Western world built entirely by mutated cattle. They form towns. They enforce laws. They create culture that mirrors human history, yet feels fundamentally different. Every character carries traces of their origin. Horns remain. Hooves adapt into hands. Their voices carry a strange blend of animal instinct and human reasoning. The mutation here is environmental. It does not come from machines or experiments. It comes from something cosmic and uncontrollable that makes it feel more natural and more unsettling at the same time. It suggests that evolution can be triggered by forces beyond understanding. The show leans into Western themes, but twists them into something surreal. Outlaws are not just criminals. They are distorted reflections of what these creatures could become. Lawmen are not just protectors. They are proof that mutation can create order as easily as chaos. There is a strange calm to this world. Everything functions as if it should exist. But beneath that calm lies a question. What happens when an entire species skips the natural path of evolution and arrives fully formed in a world it was never meant to inherit? Number 9. Samurai Pizza Cats. 1991. This world does not follow rules. It bends them until logic disappears. At its center are cats who run a pizza shop by day and transform into armored warriors by necessity. The transformation is not explained in scientific terms. It simply happens. One moment they are workers, the next they are something else entirely. Their bodies shift with speed and precision. Armor appears as if summoned from nowhere. Weapons emerge as extensions of instinct. It feels less like technology and more like a ritual that has become routine. The mutation here is not physical in the traditional sense. It is layered into identity itself. What makes it bizarre is the fusion of elements that should never belong together. Feudal culture mixes with futuristic machinery. Animals behave like humans, yet retain exaggerated instincts. Comedy masks chaos while battles unfold with real consequences beneath the surface. Even the world around them feels unstable. Authority figures are exaggerated. Villains transform in unpredictable ways. Every episode introduces a new distortion of reality. It is not just the characters that are strange. It is the entire environment they exist in. The show thrives on unpredictability. It embraces absurdity and pushes it further with every moment. Nothing remains grounded for long. That constant instability creates a unique kind of mutation, not of flesh, but of tone. It turns the familiar into something that cannot be categorized. And it prepares the ground for a different kind of transformation where mutation is tied to science and isolation rather than chaos. Number 8. Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys. 1996. The transformation here begins with intention. These monkeys are not changed by accident. They are altered through experimentation designed to increase intelligence beyond natural limits. Their evolution is forced. Their minds expand while their bodies remain caught between animal instinct and human awareness. This creates a tension that never fully disappears. They can think like humans, but they still feel like animals. Fear reacts faster than logic. Curiosity pushes them into danger. Their intelligence becomes both a gift and a burden. Placed in the isolation of space, this tension grows stronger. They are far from the world that once defined them. Surrounded by unknown threats, they are forced to rely on abilities they barely understand. Mutation becomes survival. The enemies they encounter reflect distorted versions of their own condition. Creatures shaped by science. Organisms altered beyond recognition. Every encounter feels like a warning of what they could become if control is lost. What makes this show stand out is its tone. It is darker than it appears. Humor exists, but it never fully hides the underlying unease. These characters are experiments that gained independence but never truly escaped their origins. Their evolution feels incomplete. Their identity remains unstable. That uncertainty lingers in every decision they make. It turns space into more than a setting. It becomes a mirror of their transformation. Endless, uncertain, unforgiving. And it leads into a universe where mutation is not experimental, but natural, where entire species exist in forms that feel both familiar and deeply unnatural. Number 7. Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars. 1991. This universe operates on a different biological logic. Every species has evolved into a humanoid form, yet retains the core traits of its origin. Rabbits lead resistance movements. Toads rule empires. Ducks serve as soldiers. It is a complete ecosystem shaped by mutation that feels permanent rather than accidental. At the center stands Bucky, a rabbit who moves with confidence and precision. His strength is not just physical. It comes from understanding the balance between instinct and intelligence. He represents a version of mutation that has stabilized into identity. Opposing him is the Toad Empire, Their design is grotesque, their power is overwhelming. They are not just villains. They are a dominant species that has pushed evolution toward control and expansion. Their presence creates a constant sense of imbalance. What makes this world strange is how normal it feels within its own rules. No one questions the existence of these forms. It is accepted as reality. Yet, to an outside perspective, it remains deeply unsettling. The mutation here is not recent. It is ancient. It defines history. It shapes politics. It determines survival. Every interaction carries the weight of that transformation. This is not a story about change. It is a story about what happens after change becomes permanent. And it quietly asks a question that lingers beneath the action. If evolution reshapes every species into something new, then what remains of what they once were? Number 6. SWAT Kats, The Radical Squadron, 1993. This world does not explain its mutation. It assumes it. Every character exists as an anthropomorphic cat. No origin story, no transformation event. It is simply the natural state of existence. That is what makes it unsettling. Mutation is no longer an event. It is reality itself. A mega-cat city feels familiar at first. Skyscrapers rise. Vehicles move through structured streets. Authority maintains order, but everything is slightly off. Faces are feline. Movements carry traces of instinct. The environment mirrors human civilization, yet never fully becomes it. The two central figures operate outside that structure. Pilots who transform from ordinary workers into aerial defenders. Their shift is not physical, but symbolic. They move between identities with ease. Civilian life fades. Combat takes over. It reflects a different kind of mutation, one that exists within roles rather than bodies. The threats they face push the world further into distortion. Villains often emerge through scientific accidents or uncontrolled experiments. Creatures grow beyond their limits. Forms twist into something unnatural. Each encounter reinforces the idea that this world is unstable beneath its surface. What makes it compelling is the contrast. Order exists, but chaos is always close. Civilization stands, but feels fragile. There is no clear boundary between natural and mutated. Everything blends together. That ambiguity creates tension. It forces the viewer to accept a world that should not function, yet somehow does. It becomes a place where mutation is no longer questioned. It is simply lived. And within that acceptance lies a quiet unease that never fully disappears. Number 5. Toxic Crusaders, 1991. This is mutation at its most exaggerated. It begins with toxic waste that does not just harm, it transforms. Exposure reshapes bodies into something grotesque, yet strangely heroic. Flesh becomes distorted. Limbs stretch beyond proportion, features exaggerate into symbols of their condition. The central figure embodies this transformation. Once ordinary, now permanently altered. Strength replaces vulnerability, but at the cost of normal identity. He cannot return to what he was. The mutation defines him completely. What sets this world apart is how it embraces the grotesque. Other shows soften mutation. This one amplifies it. Characters are not just changed. They are deformed into extremes. Each design reflects the chaos of their origin. There is no attempt to make it subtle or believable. The villains mirror this distortion. They thrive on pollution. They exploit mutation rather than fear it. Their goals revolve around spreading the very force that created the heroes. This creates a strange balance. Mutation becomes both weapon and curse. Despite its exaggerated tone, the underlying concept remains unsettling. These transformations are irreversible. They strip away the possibility of normal life. Identity is rebuilt from damage rather than choice. The humor masks that reality, but never removes it. It exists beneath every exaggerated movement and every absurd design. This makes the world feel unstable. It is built on contamination. Everything that exists within it is a product of imbalance. And that imbalance creates a constant sense that things could collapse at any moment. Mutation here is not evolution, it is consequence, a visible reminder of what happens when nature is pushed beyond its limits. Number 4. The Adventures of T-Rex. 1992. This mutation does not come from a laboratory or a sudden accident. It feels older than that. Stranger. As if some forgotten branch of evolution refused to disappear and instead adapted in secret. The result is a world where dinosaurs do not remain buried in the past. They return in altered form, upright, intelligent, and fully embedded in modern life. At the center are 3 dinosaur brothers who move through the city like detectives from another reality. Their bodies still carry the shape of prehistoric creatures, but everything else has shifted. They speak, investigate, reason, and fight crime inside a world that treats their existence as normal. That is what makes it unsettling. No one stops to question why creatures from extinction now wear clothes, solve cases, and live among humans as if they were always meant to be there. The mutation here feels complete, not unstable, not temporary. These are not animals turning into something else before our eyes. They already arrived transformed. That creates a different kind of tension. The mystery is no longer how the change happened. The mystery is what kind of world could exist after such a change had already become permanent. The tone keeps things light on the surface, but underneath, it is deeply strange. Prehistoric power blends with urban order. Ancient instinct exists inside modern identity. Every case they solve feels like proof that evolution in this world took a path no one was supposed to witness. And that quiet unnaturalness leads perfectly into the next entry, where exaggeration itself becomes the design of an entire world. Number 3. C.O.P.S. Crooks, 1994. This world feels structured at first. Law exists. Order is enforced. Society appears stable. But beneath that surface lies something unusual. The characters operate with exaggerated forms that blur the line between human and something else entirely. Faces stretch into caricatures. Movements feel mechanical at times and animalistic at others. The mutation here is not explained through science or accident. It is embedded into the design of the world itself. Every character exists as an amplified version of identity. Heroes become sharper and more controlled. Villains become distorted and unpredictable. It is as if evolution pushed traits to extremes and then stopped. This creates a strange visual language. Bodies communicate more than dialogue. A rigid posture signals authority. A twisted grin signals chaos. The mutation is symbolic as much as physical. It turns personality into form. What makes it unsettling is how normalized it becomes. No one questions these appearances. No one reacts to the distortion. It is accepted as the natural order of things. That acceptance creates a quiet tension. The viewer sees something unusual, but the world treats it as ordinary. The conflict between law and crime gains another layer because of this. It is not just a battle of ideals. It is a clash between different manifestations of mutation, control versus excess, stability versus distortion. The environment reinforces this idea. Technology feels rigid and controlled. Criminal spaces feel chaotic and unpredictable. Everything reflects the balance between order and mutation. This makes the series feel less like a traditional narrative and more like a stylized ecosystem, a place where identity has evolved into something exaggerated and permanent, and where the line between normal and unnatural has quietly disappeared. Number 2. Beast Wars. Transformers. 1996. This is where mutation becomes something deeply complex. It is no longer just about flesh or instinct, it is about the fusion of organic life and machine intelligence. The characters are not animals in the traditional sense. They are mechanical beings that adopt animal forms to survive in a hostile environment. At first, it seems like disguise, a way to blend into surroundings. But over time, the transformation reveals something deeper. These forms begin to influence behavior. A gorilla body carries weight and strength that shapes movement. A cheetah form introduces speed and urgency into thought. The boundary between machine and animal begins to blur. This creates a layered identity. Each character exists in multiple states at once: machine logic, animal instinct, individual personality. None of these elements fully dominate. They coexist and conflict constantly. The mutation here is adaptive. It evolves based on necessity. Exposure to energy fields alters systems. Bodies change to maintain balance. This is not a fixed transformation. It is ongoing, continuous. What makes it unsettling is the loss of clear identity. These beings are no longer purely artificial or organic. They exist in between. That space creates uncertainty. Decisions are influenced by instincts they were never meant to have. The environment amplifies this tension. The planet itself feels alive with energy that reshapes everything it touches. Evolution is not controlled. It is triggered by forces that cannot be fully understood. The conflict between opposing factions becomes more than a battle. It becomes a struggle over what they are becoming. Each side represents a different approach to mutation: control or surrender, stability or change. This transforms the narrative into something philosophical. It questions whether identity can remain stable when the body itself refuses to stay the same. And in that question lies the true strangeness of the series. Mutation is not a moment. It is a condition that never ends. Below. Number 1. Gargoyles, 1994. This is where mutation becomes something darker, more controlled, more deliberate. It is not random, it is engineered. Scientists attempt to reshape living beings by combining different forms of life. The result is something that feels wrong on every level. Creatures that exist between human and animal, between intention and consequence. These experiments do not create balance. They create instability. Bodies struggle to adapt to their new forms. Minds fracture under the weight of transformation. Identity becomes uncertain. Memory clashes with instinct. The result is not evolution, but distortion. The world around these experiments remains grounded. Cities function. People live normal lives. That contrast makes the mutation more disturbing. It exists in secret, hidden from public view. A reminder that transformation does not need to be visible to reshape reality. The gargoyles themselves represent a different kind of change. Ancient beings turn to stone by day and alive by night. Their existence is already unnatural, but they are stable within their condition. They have identity, purpose, history. The mutated creatures do not share that stability. They are recent, forced, unfinished. Their forms reflect conflict rather than adaptation. This creates a clear contrast between natural evolution and artificial interference. What makes this story powerful is how it treats mutation as a moral issue. It is not just about what can be done. It is about what should be done. The experiments raise questions about control and responsibility, about the consequences of reshaping life without understanding it. The tone supports this weight. It is serious, grounded, often quiet. The horror does not come from spectacle. It comes from implication, from the idea that identity can be taken apart and rebuilt into something unrecognizable. This makes the mutation feel permanent even when it is hidden. It lingers beneath the surface of every scene, a reminder that change is not always progress. Sometimes it is loss, and in that loss lies the true darkness of transformation. These cartoons were never just entertainment. They were reflections of a decade obsessed with change and transformation. Some mutations created heroes, others revealed something darker beneath the surface. And maybe that is why they still feel so strange today. If you remember any of these, then you have already stepped into that world once before.